Hello again. Hello again. I'm Ron Reale, the former president of the New York City Transit Police Benevolent Association, and this is my podcast. And as I said when I began the podcast, started to create it, is that it was going to be a truth telling podcast. It was going to set the record straight, not only for my tenure as a police officer and a union president, but also that of the city of New York, which is all distorted when you look at it. Anyway, in today's podcast, I'm going to play you a very interesting. You can't make this shit up. This tape is an interview by Vlad TV of Anthony Raimondi, Raimondi, a former enforcer for the Colombo crime family. And it's on Vlad TV podcast. And it's a full-length interview of Raimondi. And if you want to go there and listen to the tape yourself, you can. The segment I'm going to be playing starts at around 59 minutes, if you want to skip ahead to it, if you don't want to listen to the whole tape. But you got to listen to this. You got to hear it because it's a very important part of what this podcast is going to be saying and revealing over time. So now I'm going to start the tape, and I'm going to sit here quietly and listen to it with you. Here, and we'll begin a discussion after the tape is played. Here's the tape between Vlad TV and Anthony Raimondi, an enforcer for the Colombo crime family.
And 87 avoided getting, arrested over the years was because you and your crew actually paid millions of dollars to the mayor at the time, Ed Koch. That was Koch, yeah. That was Koch, yeah. That was like when we used to do all the contracts we used to get from him. Oh yeah, we put him in. We're the ones who put him in office because we started the fundraisers. It was called the Chaise Royale. Benny Kirkorada had it. He was a captain in one of the families. And it was me, Dominic Rayon, who was the Deputy Commissioner of Veterans Affairs, Carmelo Sapio, politician from Staten Island. There was Mike DiNicola, who was a captain of corrections officers, Hank Velez, who was another captain of the correction officers, Dominic Barbarino, he was a retired, I think, an inspector. And they told me about him. I spoke to my father and my uncles. I said, listen, we get this guy in. And we're made. We got the run of the city. We got him in. We got all the units to go for him. We got him in. He would give us contracts. We did a contract on 210th Street, Morningside Drive. We put the bid in. We were like maybe $4 million higher than anybody else, and we got the bid. Bess Meissen was the bag lady because I used to meet her at Dominic Rayon's house on Avenue O. He lived on Avenue O. And I used to bring the money there in the past. I used to bring it like a plastic bag or a shopping bag. She used to get it, open up a release and put it in there and close it. But anytime we would give her a contract, she would say, you can get it, this is what Ed wants. $2 million here, $1 million here, 3% of this, 2% of this. Just give him a flat fee like that. And we always had it with him. Always had it with him. He had his hand out. Just like Carmelo Sapio. I mean, come on, one of the biggest politicians going. He was involved with us. Come on. We all made money. That 12 years was the best 12 years. Even though I was in prison, they were still making money. Because what happened when I went away, then Dominic would be the one doing the talking. He would get in touch with Bess Meissen and say, listen, this is what we got. And I would send the guys to him. Matter of fact, Ralph Scorpo, who he passed away now, he was at the head of SNA Concrete. He used to come up with me with jobs. I used to say, Ralph, I got it for you, no problem. I had a job I got for, I'll tell you right now,
You see the West Side Highway here in New York? I had a friend of mine that I got to Sal Baldeo, Tato. He was with the Lucchese family. He was Bobby Feldman's rabbi for Feldman Lumber, which is in Brooklyn. I'll tell you. He introduced me to a guy, Leo DeRuba, who was the business agent for Olympia and York. They're, I think, the biggest or the second biggest construction outfit in the world. They're based in Canada. Leo told me about this job with the West Side Highway. I said, all right, Leo. I said, let me go see what's what. I spoke with Bess Morrison. She turned around and says, Ed wants $2 million. All right. And give him, I think it was 3 or 5% of the job. But after the job is done. But anything you do for like maintenance, that's all theirs. I told Leo, he said, I'll go talk to my people. I didn't hear from him for about 2 days. So one day, about the third day, he calls me and says, I'm coming to your house. I said, all right, I got to see you. Okay. Didn't discuss nothing. He comes walking in with a big valise, with a big suitcase. As you're going away? He said, no, what? What are we doing with the suitcase? He goes, open it up. $2 million. He said, they want the job. They got the job. Olympia, like that, they got the job. That job was so overpriced and high priced, you have no idea how much money everybody made. And then, once all that money was done, Olympia and York had the maintenance on it. All the money they made on the maintenance went to them. Koch didn't want nothing on that. He was being fair about that.
Well, ultimately, after the Third Colombo War.
Okay. So that part of the tape is what we're going to be talking about. First of all, I have to, if you're questioning, do I believe it? Number one, I know Ed Koch. Number two, I know most of the players who he's talking about in there. I didn't know them personally and know of them. Do I believe it? It rings true. Okay, let's put it that way. And the question that comes to my mind is, where the hell was the FBI? A couple of blocks from City Hall, and all of this is going down with Ed Koch and his beard, Bess Morrison, who gave him cover because he was rumored to be gay, and she's a former Miss America runner-up. And he started hanging with her for the media purposes, for media shots and all. And according to Raimondi, she was the bag lady. And the FBI was a few blocks away during all this. Now, this brings to my mind is the FBI up to what J. Edgar Hoover invented it for. Every 10,000 cases that come in, they prosecute less than 100, and they keep the files on the rest. They're a big filing agency, a big filing cabinet. They get the goods on people. That's how J. Edgar Hoover set it up. They get the goods on people, they create the file, and they use it at a time when it's advantageous to them. Because the FBI, more or less, is structured just like a criminal enterprise. And I'm not talking about the rank and file FBI agents. They're terrific investigators. They don't pick their jobs, they're assigned them. The hierarchy of the FBI belongs in jail. They are running a criminal enterprise. And that's even proven in today's headlines, what they've been doing. And they're getting away with it because of the FBI. But somebody's got to bring out exactly what they've been doing all along. Now, here's a case where the mayor of the city of New York, Ed Koch, how am I doing? The former congressman, Ed Koch. He ran in a campaign, Mario Cuomo ran against him, and there was flyers out there, vote for Cuomo, not the homo. Cuomo denied having anything to do with those flyers. But it's a poorly kept secret that Ed had a private life, and he lived it privately, and that was his business. He, however, was, I'd say, more than strongly rumored to be gay. He was gay, and that was the story with him. But here's the mayor of the city of New York. How am I doing, Ed Koch? Who is brazenly selling contracts to the Colombo crime family. That's the mafia. Do you understand who I'm talking about when I say Colombo crime family? That is the mafia. So for all practical purposes, Ed Koch was an associate of the mafia. And they wanted to pin me on being an associate of the mafia because my father was a member. And I hadn't met him until I was 21 years old when I became a police officer. But during my trial, the FBI said through legacy, Ron Reale is an associate of the Genovese crime family. And we had to fight them on that to take those boxes that were marked in that fashion. And they placed for the jury to see, to take those evidence boxes out of the room. I'll tell you right now, imagine if walls had ears, what we would find out about the true history of the city of New York. Anyway, they keep everything hidden, just like they keep everything hidden on me. I brought 9mm into the city. I upgraded the firearm from the 38 to the 9mm. Cops are carrying that weapon today, and I was the first police union chief to bring those guns into use in New York City. NYPD followed me on it. When I got Governor Cuomo to approve it, above the objections of then Mayor Dinkins and Police Commissioner Kelly, and I got the MTA board to vote on it, and by a majority vote, transit cops were the first ones to carry 9mm in the city. Now, that's nowhere, if you Google anything on the history of the city of New York or read anything on it, that the transit police brought them in, and then the NYPD ultimately were giving them because they had no choice but to give it to the NYPD. They had cops working side by side just about with two different firearms. The NYPD had 38 caliber revolvers, antiquated, that weren't working. And the transit cops had the 9mm. They had to give in, and then they came into use in the entire police department in the city of New York. The merge. I don't know where you'll find anything in the history of the city of New York that Ron Reale, the president of the Transit PBA, campaigned for that merge when he got elected president and ultimately brought the merge into existence when he signed off on the MOU. That's all hidden history in the city of New York. They create their own fairy tales. Give Giuliani all the credit for the merge. Don't give it to Reale. Giuliani didn't have a clue about the merge until I told him that I wanted the merge. And I met with him in his office when he was running for office as mayor in that race. And I endorsed him, and he won that race. If not for the Transit PBA and Ron Reale, Rudy Giuliani would have lost that race against Mayor Dinkins. I was in a fallout with Mayor Dinkins because of the Crown Heights riots, where he ordered cops to stand down and take bricks, bottles, and other debris off their head and just stand down for months and not do anything to break up the riot. And I went to him and I told him, I'm going to tell you this face to face. I'm going to run for public advocate, and I'm going to campaign against you. And I want to be the first one to tell you, Mayor, I like you as a person, but you suck as the mayor. And I'm going to do everything I can with me and David Dinkins. And I ran for public advocate, and we're going to get into one of that in one of the episodes. That was the beginning of all of my problems legally, by the way, which we will discuss. But back on Ed Koch here. Here's the mayor of the city of New York. How am I doing, Ed Koch? Doing business with the mafia for millions of dollars. And the city taxpayers paid millions paid in an honest bidding system. Now, if the FBI knew nothing about this for the 12 years that Ed Koch was in office and doing this, my question is, why didn't you know? Where the hell were you? You're a couple of blocks away from City Hall. You mean to tell me all of this was going on and you picked up no information on it? I say you're full of shit. You had the file on it and you kept quiet on it, is what my belief is, because you're a filing agency. You're not a real investigative agency. You only investigate political enemies when you're told to investigate them. Like me, I was a political enemy of Rudy Giuliani, who happened to be one of the good old boys at the time. Like Trump, he's a political enemy of Biden, and you follow the Biden administration lead and you investigate Trump. Who's kidding who? You think we're stupid out here that we don't know this? We see what's going on. And we're going to bring more and more to light so that the true story could be somewhere, it could be recorded and be told on just how corrupt the FBI is. Do we really have a fighting chance if the premier law enforcement agency in the country is corrupt? Do we really have a fighting chance on running a clean city? The mayor of the city of New York, with taxpayer dollars, overpaid on contracts and made millions and millions of dollars for 12 years, and you knew nothing about it. Just for that and that alone, if you knew nothing, if you are that stupid, you should shut down, take your shingle down. But I know you're not that stupid. I know that you're a filing agency. That's what you are. For every 10,000 cases you get that you could prosecute, you prosecute 100. That's what you do. And they're enemies. They're people like myself who were mocked for prosecution. And then you stage the indictment. And you stage an indictment and throw everything you can at that individual who's indicted, hoping to break them financially, hoping that he goes and commits suicide or does something else that's stupid. That's exactly how you operate. And I know it. I was a victim of it. In any event, we're going to discuss a lot more of that. But this here is astonishing. And now Ed Koch is deceased. And you know, they closed the books on this kind of stuff. And I wonder if they'll ever do an official investigation now, even now, and gather at least the information from the construction company to the people who ran the construction company to Anthony Raimondi on what he has to say publicly on this here. Bess Myerson is no longer with us either. But verifying the meeting location in Brooklyn, there's so much to put together. Simulate a file to at least record it somewhere in the history of the city of New York that this is the information that came out after Ed Koch was out of office and deceased. And they can validate it if they wanted to. There's enough people still alive, enough of those players that he mentioned in there are still alive, and it can be validated. I don't think they have any stomach to do that. And they'll just keep going on being the filing agency that they're noted to be, a filing agency, and keep gathering records on everybody. You, the listener out there, I guarantee you probably got a record with the FBI and don't even know it. Don't bother filing out a Freedom of Information request form and sending it to them, because you'll get back a lot of bullshit. The whole record will be redacted, blacked out. All you'll be able to see on there is your name and a word here or there. They'll never tell you what they're holding in that file. They gather as much information on it as, even if it's useless at the time, they open a file. Believe me, they got a file. So, you know, J. Edgar Hoover set it up that way. He was a master at it. That's how he coerced the Congress and to keep expanding the FBI, keep giving it larger and larger budgets. He had every one of them. He had every one of those congressmen dirty. And he never prosecuted them. That's the truth. And that's all verifiable. The idea is that this corruption has got to be exposed somewhere. And I'm going to start by exposing it here and get what I have to say about it into the city record. And I'm going to speak out whenever I can speak out on it, because there's a much larger case underfoot that has never been prosecuted. And you want to know who that's against? That's against the FBI. That's who that case is against. Umano uno, the FBI, the big filing agency. There needs to be a top to bottom special prosecutor appointed, and they got to clean that place out. They got to clean it out. And it's a shame when you see the fake history that they're creating in America with their phony investigations. They're phony investigations that lead to indictments. They could indict a ham sandwich. And they always do. When you're up against the United States government, they win 98% of their trials. Why? They boss, bully, and bought the witnesses. They intimidate the jury. The jury's afraid to vote against them. The whole thing is a sham. The entire federal system is a sham. And I know that the jury is afraid of them. And that's why you get 98% conviction rate. Do you get it because the FBI is correct on every case? No. Most of their cases are political bullshit. The people that have been prosecuted have been set up by the FBI. And they work like snails. They take 2, 3, and 4 years to put their investigation together, and then they indict you at a more opportune time for themselves. And I still have more to tell on my indictment. We're going to get to that. I lived it. I seen what they did. And as a paralegal, I helped other people who were prisoners and looked into cases that the FBI did. And they all had the same fact pattern. Believe me, the FBI only comes after you if you're marked. They don't come after you for what you did. They come after you because they were told to come after you and then to indict you like a ham sandwich. That's the truth about the FBI. It's disgraceful. And the whistleblowers who are appearing before Congress recently, they should be listened to. They should be listened to. And the men and women of the FBI should get a backbone and some guts and start appearing down at those hearings and tell the truth about what's happening in the FBI. And that if you open your mouth, they'll bury you. They'll knock you off the payroll. They'll try to bankrupt your family. They'll keep you without pay, and they won't let you get another job during it. That should all come out. They need a clean house. They need a special prosecutor appointed to investigate them. That's who's got to be investigated. It's about time that the FBI is investigated and that these higher echelons of the FBI are held accountable for their criminal conduct. Criminal conduct. They are charging Trump just about with treason. Much of what they're doing in the political arena is a conspiracy against the United States of America and treason. And they're getting away with it because they hold the keys to the investigations. And I can tell you right now, it's got to stop. At some point, they got to be put in check. You want to be able to bring criminal prosecutions with integrity and take the stand and be looked at by the jury as a professional law enforcement officer, one who's there to carry out their sworn duty. You got to clean up your house. Nobody respects you today. I'm telling you, your reputation as a law enforcement agency is not worth 2 cents. It's not. Nobody sitting out here listening to this or elsewhere believes you anymore. You have a bad reputation. And I think that you got to do something about that. Anyway, this piece here on corruption in New York City involving contracting and organized crime involved with City Hall should really come as no surprise to us. It really shouldn't. It's what we all knew, but could do nothing about, especially when the FBI did nothing about it. But they did know how to go after the mafia. And nobody's telling me that with the investigation that they put against the mafia, they didn't learn about this during those investigations. That's a lot of poppycock. They certainly did learn about it. At some point in time, I guarantee you, there's a file down there on Ed Koch. And they sat on it. They didn't prosecute it. They didn't make him a ham sandwich. No. He was one of the good old boys to them. And that's how they kept it. And that's the truth. And me being outspoken like I am being on this podcast is the whole reason that I had any trouble at all with the law. I never, not only was I never arrested, I never committed any crimes, period. Never. I could have been rich as in New York City as a president of the police union. They accused me in the indictment of stealing all the money from the pension fund, from the health and welfare fund, this fund and that fund. I stole all the money, except every one of those charges that they put in that flaky indictment were dismissed at trial. I was acquitted of all of those charges. I was acquitted of them because I never did them. And they knew that when they added it to the indictment. They investigated me long and hard, and they knew that I was not corrupt. And I didn't have to become president of the Transit PBA to make money. I worked in the ghetto. And let me tell you something about the ghetto. There might not be a lot of bank accounts with a lot of money in it, but there is a lot of money on the street. A lot of money. And I'm talking big money. And if I was corrupt, I worked in the precincts like the 7-5, the 7-3, the 7-7. Drug activity every minute of every day, and millions of dollars floating around the street. And believe me, if I was going to be a corrupt cop, and this I swear, I never took $1 in a bribe, okay? I came across a lot of money and I could have made myself rich, and I did not, because I took an oath, and I lived up to that oath. And the ironic thing is, I wound up in federal prison, sentenced to 21 years and serving 7 years out of that 21 when I got 3 days credit for every day I served after I put the motion in to resentence me concurrently. I wind up in prison. Believe me, this had me thinking when I was in there, how the hell did I ever wind up in here? Okay. They had to hammer down the nail that stood up. And Giuliani just could never take it that I stood up to him. And I made him live up to his word. He had promised that he was going to support the merge when he was a candidate, face to face with me. And I told him to his face in his law office, I'm not backing you because I like you. I don't like the mayor more than I don't like you because of Crown Heights. I let him know why I was backing him as mayor. And he only won that race by 90,000 votes. He never would have won without my endorsement. Never would have been mayor of the city of New York. I like to see somewhere in the history books, or as historians look at the true record of the city of New York, somewhere the truth starts coming out. Not what they paint it to be. Not when they slam people with indictments and they put that all over the news and it winds up on Google and people say, oh my God, he got indicted, 40 counts, 50. He must be guilty. Stop thinking like that. Stop it. No, you should scratch the surface. Look beneath the surface. Is this just another ham sandwich being indicted? This is some terrible stuff. And especially that it's being etched in the city's history. We need a special prosecutor. We absolutely need a special prosecutor to investigate the FBI. And hopefully down the road, be it a Democrat president in the independent president, a Republican president, they're going to wake up and they're going to hold the FBI accountable, and they're going to clean house because they're not doing the public a service. They're going to clean house. And I just think that it will be about time when they finally do that. Look, at all the investigations that they corrupt. I'm not even going to get into the politics of it because it turns my stomach. But in any event, this was an important tape to put out here. This is a legitimate interview. This is on the record, this interview. Many of the players are still alive. And I don't think the FBI has any stomach for it. And next to which, I don't think they're learning anything. I think they already knew it, and they know it. And it's just another dead letter in a filing agency. It never became a prosecution. So with that, this episode is over. I hope I gave you a lot to think about. And if you want to go see the interview yourself, I told you how to go see it on Vlad TV. Anthony Ramundi is the Colombo associate, the Colombo enforcer's name. Look up his full interview and go to around the 59-minute mark on the interview, and you'll start hearing it yourself. You'll hear what you just heard here, okay? And it turns your stomach, but hey, it's the truth. And at some time, in some place, I hope that this podcast will start teaching them something. That with the advent of podcasts, you never know when what you did is going to come out, and it's coming out now. Okay, with that, I want to end the podcast. I want to say ciao. I want to say be safe and God bless. Thank you.